Thanks a lot for that. What Yuri said was true. I am Bruce Sterling, and I'm pleased to be here in Brussels, talking to Europeans about culture and technology in the future. We have our European green passes. We got on the plane. We're meeting friends here. It's refreshing after all the quarantine, and it feels great to be with you here and brushing some of the rust off. So if you don't know who I am or why I would be here among you, yes, this is Bruce Sterling, science fiction writer from the USA. Here I am as a participant in the science fiction business with my most recent book of stories, some of which involve art and artificial intelligence. There I am on the Amazon big tech platform, Amazon Italy in this case. And this story in particular, Robot and Roses, is a commercial science fiction story whose hero is a European art critic who is very concerned about neural net artificial intelligences creating artwork and what that might mean culturally. So if you think, wow, the topics of EU future living seem rather science fictional, this is actual commercial science fiction set in Europe and written about some of your core interests at your symposium. So now the topic at hand, artificial intelligence, Europe, and the future. Well, this is the historical source of the problem here. Bunch of American computer scientists, the famous Dartmouth meeting of 1956, where the concept of artificial intelligence was invented and promoted. I was 2 years old when this symposium took place. So artificial intelligence has shadowed me for my entire creative career and my entire extensive lifetime, and I have spent a lot of time wrestling with it. Now, the field of artificial intelligence has been unusual among fields of science because it has winters. AI winters. There's a tragic aspect to that. Quite often, the scholars of this field tend to despair and just quit. They raise unbelievable amounts of money. They devote tremendous amounts of research effort, and they just kind of give up. They're disenchanted. They're embittered. In the year 2012, there was a big resurgence in the computer science field of artificial intelligence and neural nets and deep learners and machine learning. And things are still going pretty well, although not as lively as they were 10 years ago. It's more like it's not a winter, it's a little bit like an AI autumn, but it's an autumn that has been fruitful and actually providing a harvest. And during the lockdowns and quarantines of the past 20 months, I've been very happy studying deep learners and neural nets and deep AI. It encouraged me. It was interesting and different. I could see that it wasn't the same AI Dartmouth kind of thing. It was a new thing. And in my lockdown period, it was assigned to me that intellectual life was continuing. And a lot of the activity was quite visible online on YouTube or Zoom or GitHub or Discord or in white papers. So I have followed contemporary AI with a lot of interest, and I'm actually grateful that it was breaking my tedium. I'm happy about it. I found it encouraging. However, in this presentation, I'm going to tell you what I think will actually happen with the future of this field of study, and I'm going to be quite frank. So here is the original AI proposal, written on a typewriter. I'm so old, I used to use typewriters myself as a professional author. And this is basically American philosophical pragmatism charging headlong into the idea of what thought and software is. Okay, this is an enchanting thing. It's very exciting. It's hard to refute. It electrified people. It attracted tremendous attention. People bought it. It got all kinds of press attention. It never really worked. I think if these AI founders, most of whom are dead now, if they could see the kind of neural net AI that we have right now, deep learner, machine learner, which is important and interesting technology, I think they'd be in despair about it. This is not what they had in mind in 1956. These remaining hard AI, old school artificial intelligence people, they truly suffer in this new regime of neural nets. They feel diminished and dismissed. It saddens me to see these old timers in so much historical eclipse. I think their winter may be permanent this time. No one's going to go back to the ideas that they had. Their battle flag has been stolen by this profitable new technology, which is not their idea of artificial intelligence at all, by their original metaphysical definitions, even though it can really play chess. It plays chess like nobody's business. So, what is it that's actually happening? Well, it's no longer metaphysics about machines that might or might not think or talk like Alan Turing. The new AI has a business model. As you can see here, it's got lots of business models, all kinds of business sectors, kind of a lot of them. Something around $60 billion in investment over the past 12 months, rather a lot. All kinds of specialized fields and niches. You can zoom in on that, or you can just look it up on First Mark Venture Capital, where I copy this handsome venture capital investment map. All right, what happens after that? Where's the money actually going? Like, okay, it's not actually all over the map. The big money is in one corner of the map. It's not about creativity, art, metaphysics, intelligence, no. The big money, means, motive, opportunity, where the action is, marketing. Marketing, sales, customer experience, legal activities, and some regulatory compliance. And this is all AI outfits, exclusively AI outfits happening here. Not weird, not science fictional, not imaginary, not speculative, very mainstream capitalist activities by big tech outfits. The biggest, most profitable companies in our present day world are dominant industries. Modern AI, it's not an avant-garde activity in a garage. This is big tech's darling. It does not disrupt them. It does not form singularities. It doesn't fly people to the moon. On the contrary, it simply strengthens the hands of Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent. These are the oil derricks, the factories of modern surveillance capitalism. So, okay, what about AI and the future of mankind? Well, if you're not a futurist, or if you don't hang out with a lot of futurists like I do, because I like them, you may not know that mankind actually has an official plan for the future. And this would be it. This is the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. This is what the United Nations and their various players have managed to sort of rumble on and agree about. And here they are, and everybody sort of officially agrees. All the nations signed up, all the diplomats. Now, obviously, if our mankind's future, if it had anything to do with an actual realization of these goals, we'd be living pretty large. I mean, our lives would improve drastically. Our situation would be near utopian. That's not going to actually happen in the future. We're not really doing much of anything to attain these goals. These are more like wishful thinking. I can't doubt that every person at the seminar here who looks at this understands that it's rhetorical mush. It's a feel-good idea. It's not real politic. It's just something that everybody in the room could be happy about. But you might look at it a little further and sort of ask, okay, how many of these development goals actually have anything to do with AI, deep learning, or machine learning? And, not really a whole lot. Like, is machine learning going to abolish poverty? It's like, well, no, we're going to have plenty of poverty because poverty is structural and people actually want people to be poor. Will it feed everybody? No, because hunger is also structural. It's not going to feed everybody. Will it make people healthier? Maybe a little bit. Will it educate people? It'll have something to do with it. Will all genders become equal because of artificial intelligence? I don't think that has anything to do with it. Will the water be cleaner? It might, really. It might help. Will there be cleaner energy? Yeah, I think it will have some effect there. Will there be better work? No. Industry, innovation, and infrastructure. I like these later ones. My personal favorite among the goals is life below water. It's like, what about it? Most of the planet is water. Well, we want some life under there. We're the United Nations. It would be good if there was some life. Will AI help the life behind water in some way? Possibly. I don't want to be cruel to United Nations people. I actually kind of like them when I meet them. They talk like diplomats, but the AI world also talks like this and all the time and kind of too much. It's amazing how much well-meaning blather there is in the AI world. Just empty talk that sounds great, but it's unconnected to objective reality, actual politics, or actual economics. Okay, this is where the world's AI ethics factories are. If you're interested in artificial intelligence ethics, I'm going to talk about ethics for a while, because ethics are like what we ought to be doing instead of like how we make things better. Like we're like going to aspire, they have an aspirational aspect. If we were more ethical, things would get better. Okay, you can see Brussels has quite a prominent place on the map here. You guys are like really players here. And in fact, that's what we ourselves are doing right now. I mean, we happen to be artists or, creatives, but we're part of this AI ethics enterprise, and we're in the center of it. And that's why I'm here, and I'm daring to breathe your air. And we have some support from European cultural institutes. I'm not a European myself, but I love those guys. God bless them. Okay, there's like unbelievable heaps of AI ethics loose in the world. I mean, this is the Chinese AI ethics. Came out a couple of months ago. Everybody was claiming, oh, the red Chinese, they can't possibly have any ethics. They're doing terrible things to people in Xinjiang with computers and face recognition. They're enslaving Muslim ethics. It's like, yeah, they've got ethics. Really good ones. I mean, you could translate them and read them. They're top-notch. They match anybody else's ethics. They might even be a little better. I mean, Europeans used to say, our AI ethics are sure to be better than Chinese AI ethics because we have humanistic ethics, which are well considered by our philosophers and public thinkers, and the Chinese would never do any of that. On the contrary, they've got lots. In some ways better than European AI ethics because the Chinese don't hesitate to kidnap the founders of Chinese big tech companies and put them in jail. So Chinese tech entrepreneurs, Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, they're really afraid of the state's official ethicists. They tremble all over. I mean, they shut down their Bitcoin factories. They junk the algorithms. They're genuinely intimidated. Okay, this is one of the first AI ethics ever. Happens to be Canadian. I mean, it's not European, US. The Canadians did this in Montreal. It's pretty good. I mean, you can read it. I have. You can sign it right now if you want. Go click on the website. Go sign it. I like the Canadian ethics. Okay, none of the later ethical codes are any improvement over this. On the contrary, if you're really into AI ethics, I think you'd do well to say, I like the old-fashioned Canadian AI ethics. I'm sticking with the original ones. Those are for me. I laid down my card when they brought out the first ethics, and I haven't changed since. I'm going to run through a spreadsheet of these because it's unbelievable how many there are. It's kind of fantastic. Various power players and their ethical AI declarations. Unbelievable numbers of them. Everybody's got one. Look at how many and how many. These ethics. They're not even like game plans. I mean, they're literally ethical declarations. Here's some electrical engineers. They're actually building the hardware, right? They decided they needed some ethics. Now they've got some ethics. They went right on building the hardware faster than they were before, pouring it on. They do have a chip shortage right now, a global chip shortage. You may have heard about that. That's really a problem for them. Ethics, they got all you want. Tons of ethics, all you can eat. Okay, here's the top U.S. spy agency, the sort of coordinator of all U.S. spy agencies. They've got AI ethics. These look almost exactly like everybody else's ethics, even though this is an intelligence agency from a global superpower which is into covert action and regime change. Okay, you're European, you look at this, you might think, wait a minute, didn't Donald Trump appoint the head of that agency? Yeah, he did. Is he a particularly ethical guy, Donald Trump? No. This declaration is every bit as ethical as the Donald Trump regime itself. But it's an ethical code. Very well considered, all you want to read. Putin has AI ethics. Just told his presidential commission, I want some. They came up with some. I mean, we're at an event which is sponsored by Slovenia and Catalonia. I'm surprised. I mean, I'm sure Slovenia has some AI ethics, but it would not surprise me if they have 5 and Catalonia has 10. Now here, to change the subject slightly, but not really, is a big list of artificial intelligence security companies, computer security outfits, most of them pretty young. All right, if ethical declarations made artificial intelligence actually ethical, If there was any likelihood that AI was actually ethical, why would we need all of these private security companies? Private security companies. Why would they exist? Why would they be profitable? Why would there be so many? They exist for reasons of realpolitik, because this is what artificial intelligence is actually about. It's just as bad as the other forms of computer security in our era of cyber war and massive organized crime on the internet, which are the conditions in which we actually live as a society. Been that way quite a while. That's what the future trend is too. Talking about ethics doesn't make it ethically better. Passing laws based on the ethics and then enforcing the laws with police agencies and putting malefactors in jail, that might improve the situation, but very few people actually do that. It's very hard to control the activities of cyber criminals, state-supported cyber terror people, or even huge multinational global big tech platforms that can't control their own activities. They don't know what's going on. Okay, what do Europeans in particular think is the problem here? When you move outside the ethicists and into like security specialists, when they're actually confronting lived reality and its many, many dangers, well, it looks pretty much like this. This screenshot of mine happens to be a European document, but it's pretty good as it goes. I read lots of these. Used to be a computer crime writer. The future of AI, in my opinion, has a whole lot of this stuff. A lot more of this stuff than it has of functional ethics. In particular, the failures, the malfunctions, the outages, and the disasters are going to be a big near-term idea. Lots of climate change disasters, because we already have those. The big floods, the big fires, we're all used to them now. They're going to get worse. Lots of disasters in the immediate future. People will still notice those. It's very characteristic of our times. I mean, we're in a disaster right now. We're in the COVID-19 disaster. We might be in the tail end of it, but if it wasn't for that disaster, this auditorium would probably be full, and there would be fewer of us who were dead. And this, and the COVID-19 disaster has changed the landscape of computing quite a lot, as well as it killed and injured millions of people. And you have survived that, so you know what this feels like compared to our situation 5 or 10 years ago. And that's also what's ahead. We're going to get more of that. Huge effort on the European cultural scene, huge effect, this plague. COVID-19, I've never seen anything like it. I know what plagues look like historically. Having witnessed one and survived it, I expect to see more of them. Okay, so how about some of the details in this interesting ENISA report, E-N-I-S-A. You could look that up with Google image search if you really wanted to track down my sources. Well, these are actually pretty good. I mean, in the design world, these would be known as pain points. Like you're actually living with artificial intelligence. You're in the world of the everyday future, living with artificial intelligence. When it works smooth, it's kind of okay. It's like you hold up the QR code, they let you pass, it's great. When you're actually like suffering from it, this is what you'll be suffering from. And most of this is pretty conventional cyber world kind of problems, like the electricity breaks, somebody stole something, we were sold out, somebody bribed your head of what chief technology officer. But there are a few of them that are actually novel and closely associated with deep learning and machine learning. Now, I could write a story, science fiction story, or a novel about practically every topic listed on this page, which is not a surprise because cyberpunks adore documents like this. We've got decades of reading them. But this is the trouble. I mean, it's not going to be all trouble because there are aspects of modern AI that are actually fun and nice and kind of delightful. But this is the gritty part of lived experience that people don't like to dwell on. They just suffer from it. And when these drawbacks, they're not like all that fatally bad. They're not like Chernobyl-sized nuclear disasters, Fukushima. They're not asteroids hitting us. They're just the innate flaws and the rotten parts of a necessarily imperfect technical system, the normal accidents, the everyday fragility of genuine life under AI. And this list is by no means complete. Just happens to be Europeans. That's the kind of thing Europeans notice. They don't like it when it happens. So what else is different about the near future of artificial intelligence as opposed to what we've seen in tech development for the past 50 years? Well, part of it is the massive scale of the investments. Sort of the mega deals, the whales, the unicorns. These are what investors call capital moats. Okay, in a capital moat, you have a new technology, and you just blow so much investment money on it that other people are frightened and you become the de facto oligarch. I mean, it's literally feudal, a feudal capital moat. Very big, very oligarchic business deals where the sheer scale of the enterprise is meant to frighten other business people away. It's not entrepreneurial in spirit, it's actually feudal in spirit. This is not exciting, cutting-edge startup innovation. This is big tech oligarchy in action. Europe got lots. Got lots. Not as much as China, not as much as the USA, but very oligarchic. Our geopolitics looks like this now. Not the pioneers of the electronic frontier, not cowboy guys. These are the unicorns and the whales. This is the unicorn whale decade. That's how we live now. It's getting more so. Here's people working on research and publishing scientific papers in contemporary artificial intelligence. They work for the global Fortune 500. They're not academics, inventors, people from design schools. They don't work in universities, hacker labs. We happen to have a hacker lab here at your event. I'm all in favor of that. I spend a lot of time in those personally. Love hacker labs, fab labs. Can't get enough of them. That's not where the future of AI is coming from. Future of AI coming from these guys. So now, to sum up, I'm going to praise some people who I think are pretty good artificial intelligence artists. They're actually, I take these creatives seriously. They inspire me. I'm a science fiction writer, but I consider them contemporary colleagues. They're harbingers of interesting things that might get bigger in the future. Okay, I'm a novelist. I have to put in some words about AI's effect on language and books. The AI that I personally use most often, machine translation, far and beyond. I use machine translation every day, sometimes more than a dozen times a day. Natural language processing. I know it's basically automated statistics. I understand how it works, and yet my hat is off to it. It's really a great technology, super interesting. I understand what's wrong with it. I know it's nowhere near so good as a human translator, that it has no common sense understanding of what it's talking about. This is not general artificial intelligence. These are not authors. These are not really poets. But the limitations and the downsides there do not hurt my feelings. They don't stop me from using it. I'm willing to live with that and exploit it. So this is a book composed by Kenrick McDowell of Google Arts, formerly of Google Arts, I think, with some help from GPT-3, the generative pre-trained transformer 3. Okay, I've read a lot of computer-generated texts over the years. I'm always interested in what these things have to say. They're always dull. They admit verbal farragos. They don't know what they're talking about. It does not have the literary merits of a human being, but it does have the literary merits of something else. I mean, it actually has this text, this book, Pharmacon AI. It actually has the literary merit in that you want to keep turning pages. There's something compelling about it. And after reading this text, I felt like I should be using this technology more in my own writing practice. I should be processing words with these systems. And maybe I will. I mean, I'm open to proposals if somebody wants me to mess with that. In the meantime, I would urge you to read this book. It's kind of indescribable, but I think it's significant. All right, come on. They're out there somewhere. They were having this issue earlier. No. There he goes. Oh. It's choking. Yes, Refik Anadol. Refik Anadol, Istanbul's gift to contemporary AI artists. He's probably the world's most famous artificial intelligence artist. Refik likes to do big, colorful, psychedelic projections on architectural surfaces. Okay, they look different than previous forms of projected art. They're novel. And here's Refik on Twitter promoting his activities in social media in Europe. Okay, he's not a European Union figure. He's from Istanbul, and he's based in Los Angeles. But it's hard to get more Milanese than this image. I mean, he's got the Bulgari Jewelry Company as his sponsor, and that's Milan's most famous social influencer as his attractive model. Now, Refik Anadol, very affable guy. Seems to get along with everybody. He's an artist who can deliver on time and under budget. I have to say his activities are cheering me up. I think the Bulgari and the Milanese fashion business, they've been through a plague. I mean, they've been through a business disaster. They lost a ton of money. I think they could actually use the kindly help of a modern artificial intelligence artist. I'm actually happy to see these three people in the same shot. I think Refik is doing these posh Italians a favor here. So if you want to be a rich and famous and genuinely popular artificial intelligence artist, traveling the world, putting your art on display, Refik Anadol, he's a guy you should pay attention to. Seems to have pretty good instincts for what's going on culturally. This is Holly Herndon. She's not from the European Union either. She's actually from Kentucky in the United States, but she's working out of Berlin. Working out of Berlin because she seems to have a lot of opportunities there in the art capital of Europe, Berlin, doing a lot of artificial intelligent music. Very contemporary composer, Holly Herndon. Doesn't sound like anybody else. I pay actual money for Holly Herndon records. I listen to a lot of Holly Herndon. Here she is on her website, distributing her own voice as a fake artificial intelligence that can sing for you. It'll sort of say anything you want in Holly's voice. Record it. This is Holly here, getting into her NFT scene, non-fungible token. She's got a distributed autonomous organization. I happen to know a lot about NFTs. I consider them highly problematic. I wouldn't want to mess with them. That's because I'm old and conservative now. Holly Herndon, head first into that, like a rocket. She's not a crypto speculator. She's not a money launderer. She's not Putin's secret services she's not the North Koreans. She's actually an artist and musician and composer. You're into NFTs, I would recommend looking that up. She's actually kind of avant-garde NFT. And she's doing NFTs to go with her music. She's like doing the little videos and the, artificially intelligent, the graphics there. You could like just spend all day studying Holly Herndon. I'm quite the fan. Studying her friends is interesting. Whoop. So is the artificial intelligence, is it really a big deal in the modern art world? I don't really think that it is. If you look at a list of intellectual movers and shakers in the artificial intelligence world, people who seem to be making a difference in AI research and development, it has one artist in it, Gene Kogan. He has a lot of YouTube videos, Gene Kogan. He's a teacher. I listen to him. But I listen to a lot of the other people developing AI who are outside the art world, and I especially listen to Rodney Brooks and Gary Marcus. Rodney Brooks and Gary Marcus, they sound like cynics and contrarians, but that's probably because they're telling the truth. What is the AI? What effect will AI have in the tech art world? Well, the tech art world, up to this date, looked kind of like a pool of colorful mush. I mean, it's kind of inborn problem or kind of its original difficulty is that it doesn't have much institutional memory, and it tends to reinvent itself every time a new creative platform comes along. So new media art continues to mutate as media mutates, and AI, machine learning, deep learning, they will have some effect on new forms of media art. There are areas where AI will be very visible and maybe even dominant, such as image processing, cinema special effects, sound processing, and language processing. But I think that in 20 years, it will have vanished into the general mush. It will kind of land with a splash, and eventually it will just kind of be subsumed. The novelty will wear off, It is fun to mess with. It's not really a massive revolution. It's not metaphysical. It's not a singularity, and it doesn't fulfill the aspirations of the original artificial intelligence founders. It's not classical artificial intelligence. What we have is a badly named thing. I mean, deep learning, machine learning, neural nets, statistical correlations. My favorite term for it is automated statistics. I like automated statistics because it doesn't have this sci-fi chrome-plated spaceship ring to it. If you say that modern neural nets are artificial intelligence, their behavior is kind of pathetic. I mean, it's easy for someone like Gary Marcus to point out their many shortcomings and the fact that they just don't know what they're talking about. But if you call them automated statistics, it's kind of tremendous how much effect automated statistics can have. I mean, automated statistics are really kind of a great thing in the world. And the statistics are good, but they're as good as other statistics. It's like garbage in, garbage out. You can't do magic with them. If you have a good database, you can get a pretty good statistical output. If your database is bad or corrupted or full of lies, you're not going to get anywhere with it. And but I'm all right with that. I'm not cynical or I'm not discontented or disillusioned about it. I had more illusions about the earlier artificial intelligence than I do about the modern artificial intelligence that we actually have. I'm kind of pleased that it actually gets some, it has its feet on the ground, and it actually has like pragmatic applications, and I use it quite often, and I get some benefit from it. I'm willing to let it be what it is. And it's unusual for a science fiction writer to sort of ask people to put aside the sense of wonder about it. But, it's not really in a sense of wonder place. It's in our pockets and our purses, and it's in our everyday interactions. And it's kind of a mistake for us to glamorize it too much and not, in fact, use it more. And my last departing sermon here is that billionaires trust Brussels. I think there's something comical about it, but the oligarchy that we have, the kind of tech billionaires, they have more trust in Brussels than they do in Washington or Shanghai or Moscow or New Delhi or really any place else in the world. I mean, Brussels is the center of governance that actually has the most pull when it comes to actually having a political effect on the detailing of this. Okay, billionaires trust Brussels to avert an AI singularity, and that's why they kind of pay all kinds of Brussels think tanks to deal with the things that they feel afraid of without actually wanting to be regulated or to become more civilized. But that is not true. I mean, there is no singularity. I mean, we have serious future problems a lot bigger than the guilty feelings of a boomer generation of big tech oligarchs. And yet somehow it's consoling to me that billionaires want to trust Brussels. I could see the comedy in that. Like, why? I mean, what does Brussels actually do? I mean, they're not a very dynamic center. They're basically a talking shop, and they're really an ideal place for compiling lists of AI ethics as opposed to actually doing anything. I mean, they're the most inert. They're like the frog in the pond of geopolitics. They're not King Stork, right? They're a giant multilingual committee. And yet they have trust, and they kind of deserve the trust. And it feels nice that we're here in Brussels. It's a more exciting town than people say. And it's legendary for being dull. I think it's less dull than Washington, D.C. I've been to both places. Even the food is good. It's not so bad. I'm kind of cheered up about it. I'm actually looking forward to what's happening. I mean, I know it's sinister, but, in some ways, European history is a better harbinger of what's been coming for us than like the notions of a bunch of graybeards in Dartmouth. To be here is to be closer to the future than you are practically anywhere else. So I look forward to hearing our panelists after this coffee break. And thank you for your attention.
Dear humans, we will momentarily pause while we analyze your reactions to the keynote speech. A coffee break hosted by the Slovenian presidency of the EU is offered in the hall. The conference will resume in 15 minutes. Thank you.